Hello everyone, welcome to the Refined tier list update. This time we'll be looking at Frederick, Alchi, Varian, and Lute. As per usual, I'll go from worst to best. Also, looking at the tier list, please tell me if the exclamation mark needs to be bigger. I'm not too used to how big it looks on a phone screen. I actually have a tablet and not a phone, so it's actually quite hard for me to gauge. If it's too small, I'll make it bigger next time. It's just, I'd like some feedback for it. Anyway, we'll be starting up with Frederick. This feels like a weapon that doesn't have a refine. I really love how they decided to make a Pref armor killer with Death Blow. Right next to a bow that has Sudden Panic, a very rare and exclusive skill that is on literally one unit, and the panic effect being on only a Versa as far as weapon goes, and then slap on top of it 4 across the board, multi-phase, based on max HP, which is a very easy requirement to fulfill right next to this. You know, 6 attack only on initiation versus 4 across the board on every phase. 16 points of stat versus 6. 16 all the time versus 6 in only one phase. Wow. Wow. Effective against armored foes. There's not a million weapons that have that effect at this point. Great. And most of the set you can run on him can actually be quite good if Frederick is plus 10 and becomes extremely shaky if he's not. So, that's great. That's so great. Honestly, the whole weapon could have just been the base effect. If you're going to put an effective against, add a second effect, please. Look at what you did for Ray, okay? For those who don't remember, Ray has a calf killer that has on top of it dull ranged, and the dull range effect is not only working on calves, it works on everything. You can't run dull close because mages can't run that. But it is 2 effect in 1, and then the refine was an Altom effect. That was a good way to do things. This is not. Honestly, like I said, effective against armored foes with Death Blow should have been the base weapon. Base. How about, let's say, a Wings of Mercy effect as the refine? Yes, you heard me. A Wings of Mercy effect. Why? Because Frederick has always been this protector type character in Awakening. He always has been protecting Lissa. He always has been protecting Crom, and then later in the story also Robin. He's always been there to protect his lord. That's just how the character was. So having a way to have extra mobility to protect said people, and maybe, you know, on top of Wings of Mercy, maybe slap a bond on it. Or just had a very generic effect of if you're around an infantry unit, boost the attack and speed by 3, multi-phase. You know, similar to what Oscar got. Or you could make it infantry and cavalry, I suppose, because BK Crom is on a horse. It's just a basic idea, but as a result, you'd basically have an armor killer that allows you to teleport around, have 6 attack on initiation, and otherwise you get 3 attack, 3 speed. The speed is actually quite important, though you could have just went 3 attack, 3 def if, you know, you feel like it. The speed is actually quite good, however, because with Speed Plus you'd be hitting 32 speed. Calf buff pushes that to 38. This is unbuffed. Not unbuffed, unmerged, sorry. then you could run attack speed Bond, which would combo into, you know, Wings of Mercy anyway, and push your attack, or rather your speed, to 43. And if the unit has, let's say, drive speed, that's 46 speed, making you a pretty solid mixed-phased tank for defense. All of this was something that I just came up on the fly. I didn't even think about this before the video. It took me less than 5 minutes to come up with this. But this is what we get from IS. So, with the rant out of the way, this is the first set I have to showcase. It's a very basic one. Like I said, it works quite well on a +10 Frederick, but if you're not +10 because of the fact that it gives no speed, well, you know, you're basically at 42 speed instead, which is a bit shaky. So, you know, that's kind of... But it's really hard to make this weapon work in an interesting manner otherwise. I would really say, if you're going to give this weapon to Frederick, make it a 4-star +10 merge, or a 5-star +10 merge. If you don't have either, just use a Slaying Hammer. Refine it for attack, and you're good to go. A attack refine Slaying Hammer is basically Frederick's hammer with 2 more health on enemy phase. And of course, Frederick's axe is a bit better on player phase, but for the most part, they work the same if you're planning on using it on multi-phase, which is again why I consider the weapon to be kind of a failure, and why if you're going to give a pref with just an effective against, it needs to have an extra effect on top of it. If you just have an effective against, it's irrelevant. Unless it's effective against infantry, because infantry killers just basically flat out don't exist. Poison Dagger don't count. 5 Might ain't doing anything for damage. That's just how it is. Glimmer works really well with this Swift Sparrow set. It's pretty obvious. You hit, you take the hit, and then you proc Glimmer. Ruptured Sky is also an option, and if you're going to use him in AA, I guess to some extent Moonbow, but if you're fighting an armored unit, you'll typically one-shot. So I guess Ruptured Sky still, because of Fallen Corin. That's the way I see it. Overall, a very underwhelming refine. It's not even that interesting either. Oh well, it is quite a shame. Oh, and for the second set, again, this is for a +10 set. Attack speed bond basically push your speed to 44 speed on enemy phase, so you have a pretty solid enemy phase to some extent. Do realize if you're going with this type of set, low attack speed becomes a requirement, because low attack speed will increase your speed by 3 multi-phase, essentially, because the enemy will lose 3 speed, and they won't get any weight above their speed either. To put it in simple terms, this essentially means that you're going to be sitting on 49 speed on initiation and 47 on enemy phase. Or no, I was right. 49 speed on initiation and 47 speed on enemy phase, which allows you to work as a mixed tank fighter. It's not ideal by any stretch of the word, but it's honestly the best thing you can really pull off, which is, again, quite a shame. There's just no other way around it. It's honestly quite underwhelming. Especially after we've seen what Katria's weapon is. I honestly... I guess this is a bit random for this video, but I genuinely think the way I designed Astra, the sword Astra, which was a refine I gave to Grey, is a lot better than what that was. Because there was a way to actually shut down Astra Sword a lot more consistently against Grey, but Grey gets a lot of mileage out of the weapon if, you know, the enemy doesn't have something like Special Fighter. But enough of that. That's in one of my video of Refined Theory Crafting if you have any kind of interest for this. Which is a series I need to get back to work on, but sickness has been unkind on that front. Anyway, moving on to Alchi. Alchi suffers more or less what Frederick did. For the most part, if you're going to build a tank like this, okay, a mixed tank, do not use Alchi. I wish I did not, I was not saying this, but genuinely do not build Alchi. Build Beruka. Because Beruka actually, yes, she doesn't nullify, you know, attack buffs, which can kind of hurt you. And sure enough, she doesn't negate death buff either. And her damage output can be a bit less than ideal. However, a weapon has a guard effect. This is one of the bigger problems with Alchi in general. Typically for a mixed tank like this, you want 3 skills to work. Guard, Mystic Boost, and Quick Riposte. As you've just noticed, all 3 of these are B skills. So if Alchi was a lance unit, this could work. This could actually work as a weapon, what he has. However, because Beruka exists, and Beruka removes 4 attack from her weapon on top of a guard effect, Beruka can run Guard, Mystic Boost, and Quick Riposte, something that Alchi cannot do. The reason why you want Mystic Boost is so your HP remains high for Quick Riposte to remain consistent. If you don't have Quick Riposte, Alchi fails. Simple as that. And to some extent, what you could do is run Steady Stance 4, you know? Or, well, I guess Steady Stance 4 with a Res Boon. And then combo this with Mystic Boost and Quick Riposte. But it's far from ideal. And also, it's some very expensive fodder. And at the same time, you also don't get distant counter. So even if you tank a ranged unit, you're not killing them. Therefore, you're not improving your situation. And hell, you can get cornered and take damage that you basically should not be even taking in the first place. Which is very awkward for this unit. Not to mention, I've already mentioned Beruka now, but let me also mention another unit that just got a refine the very last month, Brave Ike. Do you see where I'm going with this? Brave Ike right now has a weekly banner. There is no reason for you not to have at least maybe merged him to +1, and hell, even if you did not, okay, even if you did not merge Brave Ike, you have 1 copy, a neutral copy, for free from the 5 free 5-star thing that just came and went. As a result, why bother with Alchi? Even at 5-star +10, Alchi is genuinely worse than an unmerged Brave Ike. Brave Ike's weapon is just that good. I can't put it in other ways. Alchi's weapon is not doing enough for him. Brave Ike does better, even unmerged, and that does not cost you feathers. Honestly, if they wanted Alchi to be a refine worth anything, to be fair, they kind of just pushed themselves in a corner after Brave Ike, because, really, what kind of axe tank are you going to work with? Brave Ike literally nullifies damage at its core. That's insane. He doesn't even need to run guard because the damage is so nullified. Let's say you're fighting a bolt fighter Zelgus, right? Is it that scary? No. The second hit will lose 80% of its power. So even if, say, Zelgus has a base of, say, 60 damage, right? Let's just say a base of 60 damage, he does 12. 12 damage. Oh, but let's add the combat triangle, 72, yeah? 14 damage. Do you see where I'm going with this? Braveye can take so much damage, it's ridiculous. I literally face tanked Abyssal Trazer with him, with little to no support. I think Brave Lucina was the only thing I used for support. And then after Aether, I think he had lost a grand total of like 10 health. From a 43 times 2, mind you. So, again, why bother with Alchi? Honestly, all they should have done is just had a certain HP heal per fight. You know, kind of like Mystic Boost. Maybe not the full 6, maybe like 4 or 5. And that weapon would have been a lot better. I would have literally increased it by 2 tier because a unit like Alchi is living off of sustain, right? Right now you can still make him work, but it requires you to run Brave Lucina with him. Would you rather run Brave Lucina with Alchi or Brave Lucina with Brave Ike? Yeah. Yeah. I think you get where I'm going with this. Here's the build I made for him. Like I said, it's far from ideal. You can't run guard with this. But then again, that's kind of just how it is. I genuinely run Dorcas's Axe over Guardian's Axe for this guy. Low attack def is not bad per se, but it's just not enough by itself. That's just the best way I can really put it. And Dorcas's Axe is one of the genuinely best axes of the game. Shutting down specials is insane, not having an HP threshold on it is even better. I don't understand why Guard 4 is not a thing yet, because let's face it, it's actually still a really good idea, because you can't run this encounter with a steady or warding stance 4, so oh well. Still, it can be a decent mixed tank. But again, like I said, if you're going to use him for heavy duty tanking, just use the free Brave Ike you've got. Sorry. The Refine just does not do enough for him. Now, moving on to the actual good Refines of the bunch. The next 2 units are on the same tier, and honestly, depending on certain things, one can be better than the other, or the other way around. It really comes down to a few things. Let's start with Lute, though. Lute's Refine is a goddamn paragraph, but to put it simply, it replaced Speed Ploy for Speed Res Sabotage, only debuffing 5 instead of 7. Now, I have good things to say and terrible things to say about this. First off, this synergizes worse than the base effect that Lute has with her weapon. Speed Ploy is genuinely better than this skill as far as synergizing. The reason why I say this is because she has a grand total of 34 res. So to put it simply, you only really, and that's honestly the main problem with this weapon, it really only works on 31 res or less, which is why you typically will run a ploy with this tome to ensure that you actually have a shot. The other thing is it requires you to find enemies clustered together. Now, That's not a problem sometimes, but you have to realize when there's only one foe remaining, this weapon does nothing. And because there's no penalty on your enemy, you don't get the 4 across the board. Which again is why you run a ploy, despite running sabotage. Not only to support your own teammates, but also because sabotage are a bit awkward. Now there's a few ways to circumvent the low res issue, and the main one is, and I can't believe I'm pointing this out, but Guntra. As we all know, ploys and sabotage rest checks happen before you get buffs at the start of a turn. However, mythic/legendary buffs are excluded from this, because those are blessings. You basically enter the map and you have those extra stats. Guntra is probably one of her best partner as far as synergy is concerned, because Guntra will increase her res by 4. Meaning if you run, say, Fury, anyone with 38 res or less, well, get sabotaged. And you can even run Sabotage Attack as your B skill, and there you go. You actually get bulk, damage, and speed from the debuff itself, on top of getting 4 across the board because of the weapon itself. Essentially giving you 9 attack, 9 speed, and 11 def/res. Makes you pretty tanky, allows you to do quite a bit of damage, especially since her stat line is actually quite good as far as offense is concerned. And it's overall quite a good move. And on top of this, Guntra feeds on debuffs on your enemy team side. So you can combo Guntra with Lute's Tome very easily. Not to mention, say, oh, I don't know, Matthew can actually combo with this team quite well. And for the last character, well, what's another unit that would be red and works off debuff quite well? Ever heard of Rid? Yeah, so this is actually a very good team that you can actually work with. Lute, Matthew, Rid, and Guntra. And because Rid and Guntra are both wind unit, this would mean that Matthew would get 6 HP, 4 def, and 4 res, while Lute would get 6 HP, 4 def, and 4 res. This is actually very helpful for Lute, because one of the biggest problems she has is how terrible her bulk is. 49 bulk against dragons and physical foes is mediocre at best. However, running attack smoke on Rid to debuff your enemy, on top of the penalty or sabotage attack also from Lute, which basically means 11 bulk to defense, on top of this 6 HP and then the 4 defense of Rid, can actually push your bulk to 70. Because 6 HP, 4 def, minus 7 attack, plus 4 def from the weapon refine. That's quite good. It actually fixes most of her issues, which is just bulk, because her offense is honestly quite good, even by today's standards, because there's very few mages that have this high an attack stat. And on top of it, like I said, her weapon gives quite good stats. 40 attack, 36 speed, or rather 40 attack, 39 speed, because the weapon itself gives 3 speed. 40-39 offensively is insane, no matter how you look at it. And again, because of the tome, this can just jump up to 45-44. That's without an A-slot, that's without a seal, that's without buffs, and that's without the weapon might. With the weapon might, you're looking at, I believe, 59-44. This is unmerged. I think you get where I'm going with this. But like I said, the main issue is our res, so this is why I say Guntra is one of her best partner to combo into. This does mean that she's a bit more reliant on wind season to function. But believe me, on wind season she's going to be insanely good as a result. Very good debuffer, and very good support for Rid and Guntra. So I have two sets. I don't typically do this, but I'm going to showcase what I did for an unmerged set. Both sets do not consider Guntra, so you can add a 4 res if Guntra is on the team. This is an unmerged set running Fury 4. You can also run Fury 3, though again, a res can be a problem. This is why I showed with Fury 4. And again, Guntra goes leaps and bounds to help you. Another character that can run a res buff, I believe, is Legendary Azura, but typically Legendary Azura you don't really want to force her in a combo with Lute, whereas Guntra is a lot more, you know, easy to use. And I believe res for fire is Marth, if memory serves. I suppose you can combo the buffs that Marth provides with the debuff that Lute provides, because, you know, you don't really need to bring your own buffs because of Fire Emblem. So you can just focus on debuffing. I suppose that's also an option. So, yeah, this is a very basic set. You have to run Desperation with this, just because your bulk is so puny. You still end up with 66 bulk, but after a fight or two because of Fury, your bulk is going to be too little to take hits, which is why you have to run Desperation. This is less of a problem with the second set, but the second set requires you to be plus 10, so you know. Attack Ploy is the C skill. As I said, sabotage skills can actually backfire if the enemy separates. Or, in general, if you actually are down to just a few units, and therefore they're not together. So it's good to have a backup plan to inflict the penalty with. That said, you can still inflict penalties with, oh hey, Rid and Guntra, because they both have a chill skill that works on the lowest defense and lowest res, respectively, that inflicts 6 attack and 6 speed debuff. You know, the attack debuff, which, your weapon does not provide. Yeah, I know I'm pushing the Guntra combo a lot, but you have to realize it is such a huge boon for Lute. It gives her so much synergy. As a matter of fact, if you're using Lute in a team comp with Guntra and Rid, I would genuinely say you can consider her a S tier character. Especially if you use all 3 of them with Matthew. Again, Matthew can go up a tier depending on it. Because, to repeat what I said in my own Discord, 7 dev debuff, 6 dev debuff, 6 res debuff because of the weapon. From Matthew because daggers. Then you have Lute's, you know, minus 7 attack from sabotage attack from the main set, or, you know, minus 5 attack from attack ploy. Or you could just run, you know, attack smoke on Matthew for a vantage tank if you're, you know, a bit awkward on the attack because you don't have a sabotage skill, which is fair. And then the 5 res or 6, the 5 speed or 6 speed depending on Guntra and Rid with their seal skill. And that gives a lot of damage. 6, 12? I'm gonna consider sabotage slash attack smoke. 19. And then 24 to 25 depending on what buff is inflicted to the speed. Or you can run attack smoke and speed smoke and then just use Lute's debuff as a source to kill the first unit and then set up for the vantage strat. But as I said, this is 24 to 25 extra damage because of Matthew's weapon. And Matthew will also buff his own def and res by 6 because of his weapon. So you only really need an attack and speed buff for that team comp to work. An attack plus Matthew has 44 attack. Unmerge, 50 with attack tactic, you're already at 74 to 75 attack. And this is without considering panic. Because panic smoke is very much a thing now. You see where I'm going with this? Depending on the enemy team comp, you might actually end up with like 90 or 100 attack, which is absolutely ridiculous. So, you know, not to mention Matthew can, you know, also run bonus doubler for more bulk, just in case. Though typically you'll be running close counter, of course, but, you know, it's not like you can't run Elliewood. Though typically I suppose Lute would just steal the buffs away. Unless you run Fortress Res, which is definitely a thing you can do in AR. But yeah, all that to say, they work amazingly together. As for the other set, this is what I run. Death Ploy is obviously not really helping Lute, but this is more so to help your own team, because then you can, you know, use the Death debuff for something like Matthew, Raid, or any user of Broadleaf Fan, or, you know, you have many options. I think you get where I'm going with this. Not to mention, Sturdy Impact and Sturdy Blow increases your bulk by 14. You can't really run these on lower merges because every point of res you get matters, whereas at plus 10 you're already at 38, so you can actually be a bit, you know, less stingy about it and end up with 43 def and 44 res. If Sabotage Attack lands, well, you're looking at 54 def and 55 res, which is honestly quite good. Not to mention, at that point you also have 64 attack, 49 speed, so doubling is not exactly difficult, and you actually, well, actually, 74 attack, sorry, was not considering Sturdy Blow and Sturdy Impact. Yeah, 74 attack, 49 speed, quite good offensively, defensively, you can easily take hits, which, again, is why I said that you don't really need Desperation on higher merges. Though, as I said, if you're comboing her with Gunshra, most of this is not a problem anymore, because she gives 4 res, so you essentially have the res of a plus 10, so this set can actually work as a result. Or you can still want to run Fury for more consistency as far as debuff is concerned. Really, it's up to you. If you're running Air on top of Lute, which is also a thing you can do for AR, if you want to debuff her for AR, then there you go. Though typically I would genuinely just say use a Versa in that mode. It's just better as far as a reliable condition goes. Since Lute is more so, the best way I can put it is a Versa is a better support, but Lute is a support that can actually fight. Something that a Versa can do to some extent, but outside of a whole lot of HP, she's not really too tanky, and as far as offense is concerned, since you're so focused on pushing that HP stat, you can't really, you know, be good on offense as well with it. So Lute is overall better as the hybrid of the two roles. But yeah, next up is Varian. Varian is a lot easier to make work. The first set focused on making him a unit that just does damage in general. You know, a bit generic, but really at that point it's as simple as can be as far as doing damage. With this you end up with 67 attack and 47 speed, which is quite decent as long as the enemy has, you know, 57 or less max HP. Which makes it fairly consistent. Now, if your armored unit can actually hit enough HP, the main one that comes to mind is Elliewood. I believe mine hits 61 health, so that can be a problem for this, though the other set will always proc against them, but at the same time, the other set is made more so to be supportive. Time Pulse is here so you can proc Ruptured Sky every time that you fight, unless the enemy has something like Special Fighter, which gives you that extra damage that you might need to finish off the enemy. 64 attack with colorless typing makes it fairly consistent to kill though, but at the same time an extra 10 damage, 11 damage here and there never hurts. So yeah, HP attack and HP speed just pushes that attack and speed just that bit more to make it a bit more consistent. And hey, Sudden Panic is not a bad ability whatsoever. As far as the other set is concerned, well, I should have probably put that first. This is a more arena focused set, because I'm sure 2 or 3 people will be asking me about this. And before someone says, hey, but HP 5 only costs 160 SP, so it's bad scoring. Actually, it's fine. The weapon does 400, the rally does 400, Ruptured Sky does 500, Sea Dual Infantry does 300, and Own Attack 4 does 300. So you're sitting at 1,900 at that point. Chill Attack, it makes that 2,140, and HP plus 5 makes that 2,300. Even if you had, say, Chill Attack, or Chill Death, I guess, you'd score the same. So HP plus 5, which gives you more HP, which makes you a better support, actually does not make you lose any points whatsoever as far as score is concerned. So it's just the better option. Since you're not really meant to use him for combat anyway, you're meant to use him as a supportive unit. So yeah, I suppose that's all I have to say for him. He's a bit more basic than Lute. He works just as well low merges than high merges, though obviously, you know, obviously, despite me saying this, it's better at higher merges because you have more HP to play around, but for the most part, it should still proc against about 90% of the cast. It's just once you have to deal with armored units that don't use a pref, and therefore uses a Death Refine for that 5 more HP, that can actually be more or less a problem. But even then, even like low merges, this set gives you, on low merges, 59 health. You should be fine. And the other set, you'd end up with 54 health. It's a bit shaky, but that's still quite fine. Although, while I do say this, I'll still say this, and that's the fact that if what your goal is just, you know, cheerleading in arena, Aversa is the better choice because of the -3 across the board on top of the panic. Because, you know, Aversa is just there for sporting. And also, Varian is better if what you want is a support that can also fight when required. It comes down to what your preference is. And with all of this said, that's all I had to say about these units. 2 of them are fairly underwhelming because they honestly just bring nothing new to the table. Alchi is just easily replaced by Baruka and Refinement. Frederick is just very underwhelming and very boring. But then you have characters such as Lute that ends up with a weapon that's actually quite intricate and can be used as a very good combo tool for a character such as Guntra, Rid, and Matthew, like I just mentioned. And Varian, which is a good cheerleading unit if you don't want to actually invest grails into Aversa. A lot cheaper as a result, and also able to work as a fighter on top of all of this. Oh, and I know this is obvious, but the refined counts is max HP instead of just is current HP. So even, this is why I still run Desperation, because even if you're at 1 out of 59 HP, if the enemy has 58 health, you're fine. In fact, it actually takes your foe's current HP, so Savage Blow might also be an option, or Pain Plus can also be an option. Because after Pain Plus and Savage Blow, your enemy's HP is so low that you'll just have permanently 4 across the board. But yeah, I suppose that's all I have to say concerning this batch of units. I suppose I'll be seeing you all tomorrow for the Sacred Seal review. Oh, and for all 2 people who cares, I'm actually starting to get better. I'm still sick. I'm still tired because I had more usinage manuel, for lack of a better term in English, because I don't think manual matching really works. But yeah. Still got the video out though. It's 4 AM, but you know, it's out. But yeah, I appreciated all of the getting well wishes that you guys sent. With that said, though, I should probably go to bed. And, you know, see you all tomorrow. Have a good night, everyone. And, well, again, see you tomorrow.